Couple quick notes before we get into this review. You're not actually going to be hearing me, you're hearing NintenDaan, my friend from the Netherlands. He's been working with me on Go Nintendo for a very long time now, and he's an absolutely huge part of what the site is. I'd be lost without him. And I couldn't think of anybody better to handle this Fire Emblem Echoes review than him, because he's extremely knowledgeable about all things Nintendo, but his knowledge of Fire Emblem Echoes, or Fire Emblem in general, far surpasses mine. So I knew he'd do a much better job with this review than I could. And that's why you're going to be hearing him. On top of that, I don't have a 3DS capture unit, so you're going to be seeing trailers and other footage of the game that Nintendo put out. So I apologize for that, but those are the two things I wanted to get out of the way, and now I'll turn it over to NintenDaan and let him get to his review.
Hello everybody, my name is Daan Koopman and I'm here to talk to you about Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia for the Nintendo 3DS. To understand my opinion on Fire Emblem Echoes, you need to understand my history with Fire Emblem, which is the following. I started with the English release on the Game Boy Advance. The short answer is that I loved that game. It was the perfect blend of gameplay, story and characters, and I really hold it dear to my heart. And the fun fact is that I played every single Fire Emblem game, including all the Japanese ones that never were localized here, at least twice. The only exception is Fire Emblem Fates, where I consider that all three paths are the singular game, so in that sense I only finished it once. To be honest, I had some more problems with that game. I didn't like certain aspects of that, but that's a discussion for another time. Fire Emblem Gaiden, the second game in the franchise, which is where Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia is based on, is one of the most interesting Fire Emblem games that I've ever played. It's similar to how Zelda 2 is weird and different, because this game still had some formulaic elements, but at the same time, it introduced dungeon crawling, it had some really neat ideas with its systems, and you also explored towns and talked to people a little, which felt more RPG-esque. And all of that stuff sort of returns in Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia. It feels like a very modern and complete package, and you wouldn't know about Gaiden's roots if you never played it before, which most of you likely haven't. So it's good that they repackaged that game in a way that feels special. And when I say special, I say really special. Starting from the top here, the story of Alm and Celica is so very personal. Like, they are have a little bit of a childhood history together, which you'll see also in the new added prologue. And after that, they go on their own specific quest years later to save the continent of Valentia. And their approaches are vastly different. Wants to take the battle directly to the opponents, while Celica wants to take the more peaceful approach and wants to seek help from the godmother Milla. You will see their roots specifically from chapter 3 onwards. You can also specifically pick which story bits you want to see first, which is really fun, and it gives the map and everything a little bit of an edge. So in that sense, it's already quite a unique game. But where it even stands out more are the specific gameplay elements. Even in the strategy gameplay, which has been part of every single Fire Emblem game, obviously, they have more simplified systems, but also systems that I think would present a new challenge to people. For example, the item system. There's no really a traditional item system to begin with. Each of your characters can only hold one item, and if it's a weapon, it can grow along your character, give you new abilities and new options to toy around with. Other items are more disposable, and you need to give them something new at the tail end of that. You really need to inventory manage a whole lot more. Which I really like that aspect of it. The micromanaging stuff is one of my favorite things to do in a strategy game. And Echoes has that in droves. There are also less things to consider. For example, the traditional weapon triangle is no longer there, which lets you freely experiment with your characters and what you can do with them. Sure, there are limitations to what certain characters can handle. For For example, if you're on a Pegasus, they will be weak against certain characters. But it's fun trying, and the game lets you free in your choices. It also makes that it's less hard for maybe a Fire Emblem veteran. If you're confident, and I don't think it's a big complaint, you would just start on hard and experience the game that way immediately and have less of a problem. But if you are like a beginner, it feels it's very beginners friendly. There's less to think about it, less to consider. You can immediately jump in without any hesitation, which feels really nice to play. I just had a blast with it, even though, again, the difficulty felt a little bit lower. The second part of the gameplay is the dungeon crawling, which sees you going through narrow hallways, going through various little branching paths, collecting items, defeating enemies. The strategy gameplay here also has an interesting twist to them, where if you rely too much on a certain character, it will get fatigued, which will cause them to have a significantly big drop in stats and are quite a bit weaker, which is not all that great, to be really honest with you. But I liked exploring the dungeons. They were over very quickly. You collect some items, you further some plot details, and that's the majority of the things that you do at the tail end of those dungeons. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I like them to have them a little bit larger, but it was such a significantly small thing that I'm not sure how it will impact the gameplay in general. But I would have loved to see something a bit larger, but it's hard to call, honestly. The last thing on the gameplay side are exploring towns and dungeon rooms. You go into certain towns, go to various places of the town, talk to NPCs, which again, I haven't really talked about this. Like, every single character is fully voiced, which is amazing. Every single character that you encounter is has a voice. There are a few small exceptions, but even the throwaway NPCs, most of them have a voice that you can listen to, which is awesome. So you talk to them, listen to their speeches, and they will give you details on the status of Valentia, where you're going, maybe new enemies or foes that you will meet very shortly. They're very handy bits of detail. Next to that, you can also like really search the environment for additional items and stuff. And you can also interact with certain objects and see what they do. I already talked about the voices, but like the presentation in general is really good. And I mean that in how the visual style is updated from Fire Emblem Gaiden. Especially the character designs. The character designs were very of their time, with big shoulder pads, and the armor was kind of, I would say, blur. But the character designs now are really impressively well done. They have this classic feel to them, but at the same time they have a modern touch. Especially Alma and Celica look really impressive, but not just Alma and Celica too. It is also all of the other ones like May or Cliff or what have you. They all look really original and well designed, and I really liked it. What helps is that the backgrounds are very nicely detailed, especially in the towns, and also the open spaces in the dungeon. The 3D environments look as good as ever. I mean, they have not really done much to improve it all that much, but they look good, you know? And of course you have the gigantic map screen, which has the cute little pixel art. One thing they've improved during the animations of the battles, though, is that both allies and enemies have a more dynamic dodge move, which looks really cool in motion. And I think it really changes the game when you look at the battle animations, especially when you look at them a lot. Some of them prefer to turn them off. I just fully embrace them and let them play out for my eyes. And with those changes, also a little bit of change to the attack moves, it goes a long way to make that game charming. Talking about charming, I also really like the updated music, because they basically took the Famicom arrangements and make them like more orchestral, which sound really good. Yeah, you get a soundtrack with the limited edition of that game, which will give you access to both the original and the updated version. And just listen to the difference, and you will know how much work they've put into this game just by the sheer music of that soundtrack alone. But yeah, overall, I would say that Shadows of Valentia is worth a purchase, despite like the two little gripes that I have, which again are super minor to me. In an adventure that never feels slow. Like I spent 18 hours and it feels like a rush, and I want to play it again now immediately soon after this podcast. Well, what is it? A podcast, a talk, what have you, has concluded. I just had a lot of fun with that game, and it might be in my top 3 or 5 favorite Fire Emblem games. I'm not sure about that, but I wouldn't put it beside me to put it there, because from top to bottom, that game was incredibly fun to play. And the story felt nice, everything about it just felt nice, and it feels good to have a game that just feels nice. Even though there are some flaws, I'd rather have a game that feels nice and flawed than perfectly polished and a little boring around the edges. But yeah, those are my 2 cents. Hopefully you found this interesting. I decided to keep it around 10 minutes because I don't want to give you too much detail. But yeah, if you have any more questions, hit me up on Twitter at NintenDaan, that is NINTENDAAN, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye, everybody.
Hey guys, RMC here from Go Nintendo. If you like what you saw in the video, why don't you give us a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe? We'd love to have you. If you want to see what else we're up to, you can check out GoNintendo.com for 24-hour Nintendo news. You can visit us on Facebook at Facebook.com/GoNintendo. You can check us out on Twitter at Twitter.com/GoNintendoTweet. And we're even over on Instagram at Instagram.com/GoNintendo. I put all the links in the description just to make it easier for you guys to follow. Thanks a lot.